The reason that we need to set a basis in what do the laws say is because the law is what gives us the power and the moral authority to begin pushing for change. Because as long as there's no laws, there are going to be plenty of people who say, well, I can't do anything. They're not breaking the law. I can't do anything. And we have a hard enough time, even when there are laws that that are targeted at bullying and prevention. So no law is going to change someone's behavior. But the law is what gives us, as counselors, as mental health professionals, the ability to push for change.
And even having your families, your parents be aware of the laws that are out there. Most of them aren't. Most of them don't feel comfortable or safe themselves in invoking this. It is a partnership. I call the school and they're like, it's Dr. Harper, everybody's step 2. But most parents don't feel confident in doing that. Pull the tape, why does he have a bruise? And so even teaching parents how to be advocates and how to connect them to resources that can help them advocate within the school system is going to be very important. No, the slides are a lot of stuff. Dr. Warren doesn't present with slides, so he's like, really, with all the slides? I wanted you to have this background information, but this is really only the start of our conversation. So I am going through it a little quickly. I want to touch on all of these points, but then what we really want to do is facilitate a discussion of what we do to move forward from here. Some baseline. I wanted you to see my data because it really sucker punched me emotionally and really made me more passionate about this, to talk about some of the teeth that we do have if we know how to invoke these laws properly, and then what we need to do moving forward. Okay. There is no federal law that specifically applies to bullying. In some cases, when bullying is based on race, color, national origin, sex, disability, or religion, bullying overlaps with harassment. Schools are then legally obligated to address it. If you get federal funding, you fall under federal law, right? If the situation is not adequately resolved, it can be reported to the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights and the U.S. Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division. So it depends on the type of bullying. Any questions about that or discussion about that? I'm going to go into a little bit more. Okay. So what are the federal civil rights laws ED and DOJ enforce? So a school that fails to respond appropriately to harassment of students based on a protected class, general bullying doesn't fall under this, may be violating one or more civil rights laws enforced by the Department of Education. So that falls under IDEA, Titles 2 and 3 of the Americans with Disabilities Act, Sections 504 plans, Rehab Act, and then Title 9 of the Educational Amendments, if it's a protected class of individuals. Okay. Do federal civil rights laws cover harassment of LGBT youth? They don't prohibit discrimination based solely on sexual orientation, but they do protect all students, including students who are LGBT or perceived to be LGBT, from sex-based harassment. So if they're being harassed based on that, then there is some protections. So harassment based on sex and sexual orientation are not mutually exclusive. When they're harassed based on their actual or perceived sexual orientation, they may also be subjected to forms of sex discrimination that are recognized under Title IX. It gets confusing, and I have a good suggestion for that. So an example of a case where harassment based on sex and sexual orientation overlap: female high school student was spit on, slammed into lockers, mocked, and routinely called names because she did not conform to feminine stereotypes and because of her sexual orientation. She had short hair, a deep voice, wore male clothing. After the harassment started, she told some classmates she was a lesbian, and the harassment worsened. The school described the harassment as sexual orientation harassment in its incident reports, but did not take any action. So in this case, this is a real case, the student was harassed based on her nonconformity to gender stereotypes. And even though the school labeled the incident as sexual orientation harassment, the harassment was also based on sex, and it was covered under Title IX. So what are the school's obligations regarding harassment based on protected classes? So if a student is being bullied, the family just doesn't file a federal lawsuit. The school has an opportunity and should respond and intervene if we know about it. So it's immediate and appropriate action to investigate or otherwise determine what happened. Inquiry must be prompt, thorough, and impartial. interview targeted students, offending students, and witnesses, and maintain written documentation of the investigation. Communicate with targeted students regarding steps taken to end the harassment. Checking in with the targeted students to ensure that harassment has ceased. This is where I see the fall apart a lot. When an investigation reveals that harassment has occurred, a school should take steps reasonably calculated to end the harassment, eliminate the hostile environment, prevent harassment from reoccurring, and prevent retaliation against targeted students or complainants. So this is what the federal obligation is if the type of bullying falls under federal protection. Is this happening?
No.
Some of it? I mean, some of it does. I don't know. I mean, where's your experience where the
At least with our kids, they've told us that they went to somebody repeatedly and nothing ever changes. So that's just the experience that we have with the kids we see in crisis.
My principal called my mother my niece because I was in so often in the principal meeting. The dean of the school didn't do anything, and she's supposed to be the protector.
Right.
And there are, no offense, I mean, there are a lot of educators, but I think some of them, I think it's too much trouble for some educators to not only witness it, but report it. And as adults, we lead by example to children. And our home is our first security blanket, and our school is our second. And if kids don't feel comfortable at school, because even adults aren't speaking out, children are supposed to be motivated and have the courage to speak out. And kids should just sit there. I mean, you see it literally on a daily basis. There are teachers who tell you, oh, stop it, don't do that. Stop and don't do that. It's not enough for these kids today.
that's not the action plan that's required by federal law. And you brought up something. You said home should be our first security blanket. For a lot of our children and youth, it's not. And so that's a big part of it too. They don't have a mama bear to go home to. My kids, can know that they can tell me and it's on. You have that same kind of mom. A lot of our children and youth don't. They don't know how. They have their own traumas. They have their own things going on. They're not capable or aware of their rights. And so we're not facilitating that partnership between the parents and the schools. You said some of this is happening at your school, that it is being...
I don't work in school, but from my personal experience, I think that my experience, the first few steps, the actual concrete, this is what we have to do, this form needs to be filled out, those are, you check those boxes off, that's being done. I think you're right in that it starts to fall apart when we talk about ending the harassment and eliminating the hostile environment, because that's going to get very tricky and difficult.
I work in community mental health. Follow through on anything is really hard. We have great ideas that aren't followed through on all the time. That's really difficult. That's been my experience within the school system. We pulled the tapes, we interviewed people, we resolved it, we this, that, and the other. Did anyone go back a week later and saying, are you having any problems in the bathroom?
Then assign somebody that job.
Exactly.
Hire somebody who does that.
So I saw a hand in the back.
I was just going to say, I think our district is really pretty good at a lot of that stuff about the follow through. And I know when it gets to be repeated, it is now we send out a bully letter to every parent in that classroom. We are required to send out a bully letter to every single parent in that classroom. So now, whoever the bully is, we call the parent and say, this letter is going out. Everyone is aware of the bullying situation. Is it flawless? No, it's not flawless. But I think in the last 5 years, the school districts have stepped it up a notch. We're not perfect, but a lot of these bullies, they're smart. They'll wait until they get off campus. They'll take 10 steps off campus and they know we can't do anything. As soon as they're off campus, our hands are tied. And so when it happens on the streets, yeah, parents can call the police and we'll say, call the police, file a report, there's nothing our hands are tied. But we find a lot of these kids coming back to campus, the cops give them the runaround too, because shouting names back and forth, they've got bigger fish to fry. So, I mean, I know there's instances where it is taken more seriously, but a lot of this name calling and stuff, they don't have time to deal with that. So a lot of the bullies are smart. They wait until they get off campus.
What was a police officer going to do because so-and-so called so-and-so a hoe on Facebook? And that's where like the communication and the flow is really important. I've had police officers tell me this patch does not say social worker. I don't know what you want from me. I mean, that's very much true of their experience and situation. So what should schools do? And I love the fact that y'all are doing a bullying layer. I haven't heard of that before. I think that's great. So develop, revise, and publicize policies prohibiting harassment and discrimination, grievance procedures for students to file a complaint, contact information for federal coordinators. Implement training for staff and administration on identifying and addressing harassment. For those of you who work in the school system, have you gotten it?
Yes.
How often do you get it?
3 times a year.
Score. I want to come work there. I was just having this discussion saying, okay, we're bringing in trauma-informed care. We train everybody once and we send them on their way. No, we have to do continuous training. Providing monitors or additional adult supervision in areas where harassment occurs. If there's a problem in the bathroom, somebody needs to be standing in that bathroom. Determining consequences and services for harassers, including whether discipline is appropriate. Limiting interactions between harassers and targets. Lost my mind when my son was bullied in elementary school and the next year he was put in the class with the bully again. Lost my mind. I am 110 pounds of wicked about my kids. Most people wouldn't have done that. I marched myself down there. That shouldn't have happened, and that was something that I had asked for, that they not be in the same class the next year. Provide harassed students an additional opportunity to obtain a benefit that was denied. So if kids are skipping intentionally to avoid a bully, should we, accommodate for that? Yeah, we really should. Give them the chance to step back up and be the student that we know that they can be. And provide services to a student who was denied a benefit. If they need some more academic support to get caught up, those kinds. A lot of our kiddos end up skipping school to avoid a bully, and we need to help them get back on track academically. Texas anti-bullying laws and policies. What term is used in the Texas anti-bullying law? They actually use the term bullying. Harassment is defined separately. Do these laws cover cyberbullying? Yes. So when they step off of school grounds and it's no longer under federal law, we do have a Texas law for bullying. What groups are listed? There are no specific groups listed, so not some kind of bullying is okay and some kind isn't. Schools that receive federal funding are required by federal law to address discrimination on a number of different personal characteristics. We don't have a model policy. It sounds like your school may. A lot of states actually do have a model policy for schools to follow. Texas doesn't. So we do have the law, but we don't have a way to navigate that. If a school says, okay, great, let's do it, what should we do? I'm one of those people, tell me what to do and I'll do it. We don't have that. So these are all the Texas education codes that cover bullying. Not going to go over all of them, but I wanted them available for you. How discipline management policy, sexual harassment, disruption of classes, community education relating to internet safety. We do have teeth behind putting a stop to bullying. We don't have the model policy, so maybe that might be one of our next steps, is creating one.
Well, actually, I really don't think so. I think that's one of the strengths of the Texas system, is that we don't have a model policy, because a policy that's going to work in Northside ISD is going to be very different from a policy that works in San Antonio ISD, or a policy that works out in a small rural ISD, because the culture of those communities are each different, and the people in those communities are different, the size of the community is different, the expectations of what is allowed and what is not allowed is different. And so I think we wouldn't serve any of our students if we set a single policy guideline for bullying, because we have to address things at the local level.
So what could that look like? A safe and supportive school climate can help prevent bullying. Safety starts in the classrooms. Students should feel and be safe everywhere on campus, in the cafeteria, in the library, in the restrooms, on the bus, on the playground. So how do we create a safe and supportive environment? How do we manage classrooms to prevent bullying? And how do we have classroom meetings about bullying? Is that one thing that y'all do within the actual classroom, is having the classroom meeting and sort of as a cohort about bullying? So that might be what your school's model policy would look like. So creating a safe environment for LGBTQ youth. Building strong connections, keeping lines of communication open. Sometimes LGBT youth may feel rejected. Depending on their home environment, they may not even be out at home. They may really need their family to be the school. Establishing a safe environment at school. Creating a gay-straight alliance in schools can be an enormous benefit. And protecting privacy. Making sure that we're not unintentionally outing. We have youth and services that are maybe not out to family members. How do we protect privacy?